So many healthy little babies. I'm so excited to see these guys outside in the fall garden. Hey guys, welcome back to another garden tour. So today I am going to be going over, of course, all the stuff happening in the garden, but today I'm going to go over it with an emphasis on what the most important tasks in front of me are. This is a very, very busy season in the garden, and I can find myself getting very easily overwhelmed by just all the things. And so I want to go over not just what I am doing, but also what I'm not doing, the things that are falling off the list in order for me to stay sane. One of the priorities right now is definitely keeping my fall seedlings healthy. Even though I'm overwhelmed with plants right now, if I don't get these started and keep them healthy, then my fall garden is going to be pretty empty. Right now, the garden is full of life, full of things to harvest, and that means it's really beautiful and very fulfilling, but also there's a lot of work to be done. I don't even have everything producing that I was expecting to be producing at this time of year, and I am still overwhelmed with just trying to keep up with preserving all of it and not wasting any of it, because nothing feels worse than growing something yourself and then not being able to eat it or even see anybody else eat it. So just real quick to those of you who are new here, which I know a lot of you are because it's the summer season and people are thinking about their gardens and researching and doing stuff. My name is Rachel. I do a tour of my garden every single week, and I talk about different things from week to week, but my main goal with this weekly garden tour is to showcase how my garden is changing over time, how I'm making decisions about what I'm doing in my garden, when my mind changes, when I am surprised by things, when things fail, and just kind of give you guys the most realistic picture of what gardening is like here as I can, because I know especially when I was a new gardener, I was very discouraged by all of the perfect gardens with the straight rows with no weeds at all. And I just want to show you guys that you can have a productive garden and have it not look perfect, but still look beautiful, and then just also get you used to the decision-making processes that happen and show you just the realistic level of things that I try that fail. I have two cats in the garden with me today. This one hiding in the bushes is Kada, and that's my old man Draco over there. I'm pretty sure he's 10 at this point. Alright, so we're going to start over here with my arched trellis. It is new this year, and all over it is scarlet runner beans, which I've only gotten one bean pod off of this entire season. They've been flowering. You can see all these gorgeous scarlet flowers, and you can see this whole stem where there should be fruits, but they are not. And I think there's probably several reasons behind this. One is we went through this period of no rain, and it was so long I kept thinking, oh, surely it'll rain soon, and then it didn't, and things just kept getting worse. And so I did finally start watering my garden, and also around the same time it got really, really hot, and a lot of plants struggle to set fruit when it's really hot, above 90 degrees during the day. So I think that's part of why this doesn't have any other fruits on it, but I can't be fully sure. Next, we're going to come look at the tomato trellis row, which also has a bunch of other stuff on it. So in addition to tomatoes on this row, I have these pole beans. These are blue cocoa pole beans. They're blue cocoa, but everything about them is purple. You can see my little baby bean right here. Here's one that's about ready to be picked right here. So this one is setting fruit, which is a good sign that the conditions are favorable for beans. But these are an annual bean versus those other ones, which are a perennial bean. So we'll get to try again next year, and these I will just plant again. But I am glad that I am at least getting some beans. it looks like a lot of foliage in here, and you can kind of see some tomatoes down in there. But I would say the tomatoes are not doing great. I mean, this is about the time in the summer where they do start struggling pretty hard. I could be doing a better job of pruning off these diseased branches. I have just been incredibly overwhelmed, and this is one of the things that falls off the list, especially this time of year, is pruning the tomatoes. And I don't know if you can tell, the ground is littered with tomatoes that were not quite good enough to take inside. So we've got some, composting tomatoes down there, and a few more to pull today up on these vines. I do have some green fruits still coming on to my tomato plants, so they are still producing, and I think, it'll be not that long from now that I'm tearing these out, but for now, they are still useful. Interplanted with my tomatoes, I also have basil. I've actually been doing a fairly good job of keeping up with it and making pesto out of it. I've got regular pesto type basils, this one and this purple one, and then growing over from the other side, this is a more fragrant basil. This one's a lemon basil. I also have Thai basil, cinnamon basil, and holy basil going on the other side of the trellis, and those I usually use for teas. But as far as sweet basils are concerned, the plants are doing good. They are still trying to flower, but I remember this time last year them trying more aggressively than they are to flower. So I think it's positive that they're going a little more slowly this year. Right here is my second row. We've got the other side of the tomato trellis, and then this row, which is a lot of zinnias, as you can see, also eggplant and peppers as we go down. Right here at the front is one of my larger eggplant plants. Oh, with a grasshopper on it, look at that. He's probably what's been making all these larger holes. I often have these smaller holes, kind of you can see here. There is an eggplant flea beetle, and I'm seeing less of that on these upper leaves and more of the grasshopper damage. So that's very interesting. I am finally starting to see quite a few sweet peppers ripening. For those of you who've been with me, this section is the ones that were stunted by the bad soil that I got, and I'm just really glad to be seeing anything at all on them. If I get down right here, you can see we've got 1, 2, 3 on this plant. There's 2 more over there. There's this one. There's this one and that one. My eggplant, which were also stunted by that bad soil, are starting to put on fruit. I've got this one here, another one through these branches here, and then plenty of flowers on various plants that I'm hoping will turn into fruit. We can also see just how much the hot peppers have grown. I think in particular this plant, this is like rib cage height on me now. It's pretty big. I haven't seen any major flopping going on with these peppers, which I really like. It means that I've got the spacing right on these. Peppers do kind of like to lean on each other, especially as they get bigger. And I'm hoping that there's this advice that peppers like to hold hands. And I'm hoping that I've got it right this time as far as just how close / far apart they are. We've got plenty of little baby fruits, not just a ton ripening right now, but a few here and there I've been picking. We just have to look at this fish pepper, this gorgeous variegated foliage that is like ghostly white almost entirely on this section. This plant makes peppers that are like candy cane striped. Let's see if it has any on it right now. Oh, yep, here's one. And it's red. This one doesn't seem to have the stripes. Let's see. I don't know if I see any others on this one. Here's the other fish pepper plant that I have, and this is what I mean by the candy cane stripes. Some of them retain it into their red ripe stage, but as you can see, some of them don't. Down at the end, the row is mostly empty. I do have a big zinnia here, and I also have a potato trying to come back up. I guess I didn't pull this one properly earlier this summer, so I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna let it do whatever because I don't have anything else in this space right now. Along this back row, I have just a couple of things. My lemongrass right here, it is doing okay. This one is feverfew. Its flowers look a little bit like chamomile. And this is one of my turmerics. I think this stripe in the middle of the leaf means it's one of my black turmerics. When I was struggling to get my turmeric to sprout at all, one of my viewers kindly sent me some of theirs that was sprouting, and among it was also some black turmeric, which I hadn't really heard about before, but am very excited about, because if you know anything about me, you know I like not just growing food, but growing food that comes in unusual colors. All right, at the back of the third row, and then moving forward, this is my corn. It is a popcorn variety. It is a Cherokee popcorn variety, and it has been tasseling for a little while now. I'm starting to see some cobs developing. And those of you who don't know, all this little silk from the corn, each one of these is attached to a single seed or kernel in the corn. And what has to happen for that to make a kernel or a seed is a bit of pollen has to come from the top of one of these and get itself onto one of these. And so every time you see a corn cob with like not fully developed kernels, each kernel that's missing is just one of these little strands that wasn't pollinated. I also have some more zinnias in here, and these are the sweet peppers that I bought from the store when I saw that my other ones were looking really bad. These ones at this point are actually not producing as much as the other ones that I had grown, which I find to be very interesting. I've got one on here, and this one is starting to make some flowers, but the only other two fruits I've seen I had to pull off because they were not very healthy looking and already half eaten. So I don't know what that means, really. I don't know if the soil in this spot is bad. I don't know if these plants are just like less hardy somehow. It's hard to say. So much of gardening is guessing and trial and error, and you know, we just do the best that we can. I have two more arched trellises in this third row. This one has cucumbers and blue butterfly peas on it, which are absolutely beautiful. And the cucumbers, I actually saw some babies. There's one right there. And if I turn around real slow so I don't give you vertigo, this one here, very spiky. So one of these is an Ashley variety, which I think is the other one, and the other is Suo Long. And I think that that's what this one is, just because it's so much longer than the other one. Oh my god, you see the hummingbird? There it is again. Wow. I love that the hummingbirds just like naturally want to come to my garden. I don't have hummingbird feeders. I just have zinnias. And they're scary too. Not because they can hurt you, but because when they fly by your head unexpectedly, it sounds like the world's biggest bee. Makes you want to duck for cover. We've got kitties in the bushes back here. There's one right there. And then the other one is walking this way. But if I'm ever wondering why a plant is leaning over, it's probably because a cat sat on it. Anyways, back to this other trellis. This is my noodle bean trellis. These are noodle beans, and they've been doing much better since they've been getting the appropriate amount of water. And I've been picking so many of them. At this point, I'm looking at preservation, and then very soon I will be looking at just leaving them and letting them make dried beans for me. In the past, I've preserved them via blanching and freezing. This year, I want to try a couple of new methods. I don't know how they're going to turn out, but I do also try and eat as many of these fresh as I possibly can, and I do really like giving them away to my friends as well, because they are kind of like a cool novelty, and they taste like a green bean, but like with just a little bit of a nuttier kick behind it. It's really cool. In this third row, I have almost entirely weeds. I do have some tomatoes. These ones are Borghese, and they are just now starting to fruit. I have also a lot of volunteer cosmos, and I did want to show you guys just how tall this one is. This is a little bit above nose height on me. It's a pretty big plant here. Down the line, I have tried planting, that is another sweet pepper. This is a basil. That's a basil. They are not doing so great. It's probably just because this area is super shaded, and they are, to be fair, competing with quite a few weeds in here. That one's a turmeric right there. I do have some zinnias over here as well. And then back here, another pepper onto my blueberry bush, which definitely suffered from the intense drought that we had, but it's still got some green leaves, so I'm hoping it does okay. Alright, as we move on to the raised bed garden, I have in front of me one of the things that fell off my list because I was too busy. This is my Brussels sprout. It made a lot of seed pods for me this spring. Are there any seeds in there? This one might not have any. Let's see. There's a couple. So this has been left outside in the elements for a while. There are much fewer viable seeds in here than there were, but because I do have packs of seeds, this is one of the things that became less important than preserving some of the actual produce that I grew. A quick check-in on my grapes. They are making new leaves for the first time in about a month. I guess the conditions improved, and you can see that they are kind of starting to vine out in a way that I can just barely start wrapping around this post. This whole structure was built with grapes in mind, and grapes along the top, and being able to climb the sides to get to the grapes at the top. I haven't checked in on this planter in a while because it doesn't have anything growing in it, and that is because the soil that I got is so bad. It doesn't even have weeds growing in it. This is growing over from the yard, but every other square inch of this garden tries to cover itself in weeds, and this, no weeds. By and large, you can kind of tell that the raised beds could use more water. You can look at the curling leaves on this stevia to see that. You can see specifically the thyme and how dried out it looks. This sage plant, not showing just a ton of signs of dehydration right now. This sage plant has been alive for quite a while. It feels quite unkillable. It looks nice in the heat of summer and in the cold of winter. It's just been a really good little garden plant. This massive dead thing I could cut out. This is parsley that went to seed, and I will need to replace that. It is biennial. It comes back 1 year, and the second year it comes back, it tends to go to seed like that. I don't often check on this one, but this is fragrant sumac. I got it at a native plant sale, and it is on this hill because I think I would like to try and use it for hedge type stuff. This is the worst looking raised bed, mostly because it got some of that really bad soil. But I am seeing that my marshmallow is actually looking pretty good. And my yarrow also looking pretty good. It looks like it's about to flower actually. And then my asparagus is surviving. It continues to put up cute little fronds, I guess. I don't know, since it's kind of fern-like. But yeah, this bed could use some major amending, and I'll probably get to that around the end of summer. I could have maybe done some more over the course of the season, but that is another one of those things that fell off the priorities list. My sweet potato patch is recovering though. If you remember, the deer came through and ate off like all the leaves, and you can kind of still see that, but it's coming back. It's making new leaves and seems to be probably fine. Something that needs to make it to the top of my priorities list is finishing harvesting all the potatoes out of here. You can see the greens have died back entirely at this point, and I need to get the potatoes out of here before pests find them, and before, you know, some of them rot, etc. For the berry patch, the blueberries look worse and worse the farther out here you come. This one might honestly be fully dead. I think it's probably drought that did it to this one. This one not looking much better, but still green and verifiably alive. So there's that. And these are the two newer ones that I planted. They were bigger when I planted them. These ones were much smaller when I planted them and have seemed to struggle a little bit, but are not nearly as visibly affected by the drought as those other two. And I guess it's because they had time to put down some really deep roots. The only berries I'm harvesting right now are blackberries. And it is just a few here and there, not just a whole lot. And the berry patch is pretty full of beetles and wasps at this time of year, which is fine. I don't mind sharing, especially because the fruit itself is, I think it's not as high quality as the spring stuff, just because of the conditions and the heat and everything. It tends to ripen just a little bit unevenly compared to some of the spring fruit. Whoops. I do still grab what I can when I can and freeze it, but if I don't get to that, then that's okay. That's another thing that can be like a little lower down on my list. The sun came out and all of a sudden it got very hot over there, so I'm gonna bring you guys over into the shade and chat about some of the things that are very high on my list, things that I absolutely do not skip. Number one is harvesting and preserving things that need to be preserved immediately. That's generally tomatoes right now, a little bit of peppers, and I do try to simplify these tasks as much as possible. Where possible, I refrigerate tomatoes en masse until I can make something like sauce with them. I'll grab one or two here and there for fresh eating, but mostly like actually cooking like regular meals with produce during the summer tends to be slightly farther down my list. So I pull in things like tomatoes, I pull in peppers, and I fridge them until I can preserve them, or in the case of peppers, I often freeze them, especially the hot peppers, and you can always take them out of the freezer and dehydrate them later. You can also just chop them straight from the freezer into fresh meals. And so that way I am harvesting and preserving, but it's very low effort. When it comes to the noodle beans, if I feel like I'm getting too many fresh that I cannot eat or preserve in time, then I just leave them on the plant, and that's my signal that it's time to transition from fresh eating to allowing them to make their dried beans, like I mentioned earlier. And this puts off the work for me by quite a while. I can leave them out here until they are fully mature and kind of dried out, and then all I have to do is harvest them, and I can keep them inside in a basket in that state for a very long time, until all the other like chaos of the garden has calmed down. And then I have a preserved dried bean, which I can use for actual years to come. I still have some from 2 years ago, and they go great in chili. In my experience, that's the main, like, number one thing I do with them. And I think they taste kind of like kidney beans. Like they're kind of similar to that. So I guess the main idea here is that aside from actually harvesting and using the produce that I grow, everything else is kind of optional. And I think different people will have different thresholds of what they think is acceptable and also of what they have the energy to do. But that is my threshold of necessary, and everything else I would really like to do but is unnecessary if I am going to burn myself out to try and do it. And then before I go, I also want to say thank you to the patrons who showed up to the live stream that I had on Discord on Saturday. For all the rest of my patrons, you can find that video recording of it on Patreon. And I also want to remind all of you that this quarter we have this gorgeous sticker available. It is only available for this quarter, so it's available until October. And if you become a patron between now and October, you will be able to earn towards this sticker. And I don't know yet if it will ever be available again. So go ahead and grab that while you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.